Seeing some good movies.
Yeah.
Phoenix Film Festival is growing and growing every year. And the International Horror Sci-Fi Festival, which is part of the festival, also is getting a little bit bigger and bigger. And selections are getting bigger. Quality's getting even better. It's good to see it. I want to thank everybody for coming out and make sure the festival's still another couple days. So keep telling your friends about some of these movies and stuff, and come on down. I'm going to have all our guests here introduce themselves and talk a little bit about why they're here today, and want to get this discussion started here for what's so scary with horror movies. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you first here.
Hi, my name is Leya Taylor, and I co-produced and was the director of photography for a horror feature called Found that played here this weekend. So, thanks for coming.
And I wrote, directed, and starred in something around Maureen. Before I say anything else, I just wanted to thank the Phoenix Film Festival for having me here, and it's really such an honor to be here. Thank you very much. But yeah, I've written and directed 5 short films so far. I'm only 14 years old, and I made my main sibling actually 2 years ago. So.
My name is Matt Medisch. I am a producer and co-writer on Cedar Ridge. And I also want to thank the festival for having us here. We're very proud to have been alongside of some fantastic films. And I'm also a lifelong horror fan, so excited to talk about it.
My name is David Pruitt, and I am the festival director for the Dark Carnival International Film Festival. And this is my first time at the Phoenix Film Fest, but it is pretty awesome. Very excited to be here.
I'm Scott Schirmer. I directed, found, worked on it with Leya down there. We're not sitting together, but I'm with you in heart.
All right. So I want to get started first. A pretty impressive introduction to Tara here. One of her short, Sibling Rivalry, was part of the horror shorts, and was one of the official selections for the festival. She was 12 years old when she made that short. And, I was pretty blown away seeing not only the age of when you did that and the quality of it as well, because, it was done really well, but also that you're a girl and you're into horror at such a young age. When I was growing up, horror movies was kind of like a boys' club thing. All the guys got together, we watched Evil Dead, The Reanimator, Creep Show. This was our Friday nights. And every girl was watching, 16 Candles, or, some kind of John Hughes movie that kind of was a little not interested in at that young age. I just want to ask you, what got you first into horror? And I want to talk to everybody as well. What are some of the films that got you into horror? To even get involved in the genre here?
Making horror, I was actually on a different film set. I was like 9 or so, I might have been 10. But it was a horror film set, and it was called A Few Brains More, and there was actually a woman directing it. And I was just like so impressed, and there's a woman directing that, and it just made me think, yeah, I can do that too. Not to mention it was also a horror film, so I'm like, yeah, I can also do that. So, but getting into horror, just the genre itself, I love Hitchcock films. I'm a humongous Hitchcock fan. So.
Cool. What about you then? What got you into the horror film love here?
Well, actually, I went to IU, and when I first went to IU, I hadn't really seen a lot of horror movies. I didn't really know what I was missing, and I got involved with a film festival there, actually Dark Carnival, the one that Dave is the festival director for. And I interned with them, and I learned all about independent horror that way, and then sort of, worked my way into the great classics, and seeing American Psycho and Pet Sematary and finding out they were directed by women was really inspirational, So.
Have you seen the American Psycho parody that just came out online with Huey Lewis?
I haven't seen it yet.
You guys haven't seen it? You guys need to see it right away. Funny or Die just did a parody of American Psycho where Huey Lewis is talking about American Psycho, and he's doing the whole, walking backwards thing, and it's Weird Al sitting in the chair. And, and he's got the newspaper everywhere, and he ends up bashing Weird Al's brains in. As he's talking about the whole history of, American Psycho. It's pretty awesome.
That sounds awesome.
And how about you? What was one of the earlier movies that you saw that gave you? I mean, anybody that sees a horror movie that gets into horror, there's always one movie that kind of put them in that place.
Yeah, it's hard to say there's one movie. Like, I love so many different types of horror, but I started watching horror at a really young age. I don't know if it was a good thing by my mom or not. I think it is personally, but from a really young age, it was I was in the '80s. It was Nightmare on Elm Street. It was Friday the 13th, and for years I watched Nightmare on Elm Street minus Freddy Krueger because it was the whole movie, and every time he started coming up, pillow. I was probably maybe 7, 6, 7, 8. Pillow every time he came up, so it wasn't years till I actually saw the violence and the monsters in films, but it was probably films like The Shining that kind of inspired me to because I love monsters. I'm a big monster movie fan, Sasquatch, werewolves, that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of that. Predator, Pumpkinhead was a big movie for me when I was younger, but I have grown to love movies that kind of build tension. Sometimes that's a forgotten art of just building tension, not in knocking on the door, someone's going to cut my throat type of tension, but the unknown tension of where the story's heading, what's going on in the characters' heads. And so, a lot of movies, I think Shining's probably the biggest one that inspired me on that, not really knowing where it was going. I didn't read the book beforehand. I was a young kid. So.
That movie gives me anxiety. It's got so much tension. Well, as well, what would you...
Well, I am really old.
It was the original Nosferatu.
My first horror film that I remember is Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, not the new one, the original one, which was actually a made-for-TV movie in the 1970s. So that's how old I am. And it creeped me out for years, and horror was kind of like I wasn't allowed to stay up late and watch that stuff. I snuck into the living room at night and watched that one. And so it was quite a while before I got to experience that again. But it was one of those forbidden kind of things, you know what I mean? And so after that it was movies like Alien and The Thing. I was always interested in the isolation and stuff like that, So that was it for me. That was what got me hooked.
My mom almost went into early labor after she saw The Exorcist in the theater. So they had to sedate her and therefore me to keep me in her belly a little longer. But I never considered myself a horror fan until I went to college and made a blanket statement about horror films not being my favorite genre, and then my roommates at the time, we went out and we rented the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Evil Dead, neither of which I had seen at that point. And then I realized, okay, well, there are a lot of crappy horror movies out there, yes, but boy, there's some freaking awesome ones too. So I decided then, I'm going to be part of this, and let's try to make really good ones all the time. So I would say Texas Chainsaw in particular, man, is like this thing I'm always reaching for, just the primal quality of it. It scratches at your nerves, It's just, I'm always trying to do that now. I'll never get there. I don't even know if Toby Hooper will ever get there again, but that's the one for me.
We showed it a couple years ago at the festival and had Marilyn Burns out, and it was really cool to see on the big screen. And it still looked, dirty and grimy, and the way it's supposed to look. Growing up in some of us in the 70s and 80s, every toy that we had was monster. I mean, from monstrous Garbage Pail Kids to, Monster Laboratory toys. And, every cartoon was revolving around Skeletor and Thundercats and everything like that. So, to people that are in, I would say, especially in the 30s, heading to the 40s, monsters was something that we grew up with, like our parents had at that young age, where their monsters were Bela Lugosi Owen Chaney, and all the original Frankensteins, Universal monsters, when that whole revival happened in like the 50s and 60s for that. And you can see a lot of influence of that even to today's movies. People touching on some of the things that influenced them as kids, that they put a little bit of a feel into their movie. Nightmare on Elm Street was the scary thing for me. When I slept with rosary beads, I ran out of a haunted house, I went to a wall. I mean, but that love of being scared is what grew on me to enjoy horror movies. Now that are here playing at the festival, we'll start with you guys with Found. When you guys are making a movie like Found, what goes through your head in the degree of like the scare factor? Like, what do you when you're making a film? I know everybody's got a script and they got some storyboard ideas, but as you work on a film, you do come to change things as you're going. What were some of the aspects of the movie, especially some of the people that did see the movie, something that you maybe gored up a little bit more or pushed a little harder for a specific scene or a part that you really wanted to make the audience squirm?
Well, I think that Found is kind of interesting because it's actually based off of a novel, and so we had a lot to work from there, and that really helped a lot with a lot of the dialogue and stuff like that. We were really, honestly, very faithful to the story, because that's what was special about it to us, was the story itself. That's what makes it special. And we didn't really change a whole lot of it. We added the gas mask as a visual element because
The gas mask is really cool.
yeah, because we wanted Scott really wanted to have that in the marketing. And then other than that, we changed a couple of locations due to some fact, like there's a scene that's supposed to be in a church. We couldn't get a church to let us film in, so we moved it outside to a church picnic. And there was another part where the main character Marty and his best friend David have a phone conversation, and we thought that might be a little boring, so we moved it out into the haunted train scene, and that worked out really well. So
I don't know. I think the thing I was most interested in terms of what's going to be scary about this movie, what new is it going to bring to the table, was a notion that comes into the movie probably most blatantly toward the end, so I'm going to be a little vague about it so as not to give much of our movie away, but I think Found deals with the sexual fetishizing of violence. And I think that's always been under the surface of most horror movies, as long as I can remember. Sex and violence are very linked. And it might be a little controversial for me to say it, but in college, we were always told that rape was about power and not about sex. And while I think power is definitely a part of it, I wondered if that was true, that sex was actually no part of it at all. Because what if violence was fetishized, sexually fetishized? I think some people truly do get off on hurting people. And I think that was the most disturbing thing that we could make sure stayed and found, that maybe hasn't been explored in a lot of movies too well.
Well, with today too, with the bullying aspect, there's a lot of that in the movie. That's like a big topic today. And being a big fan of revenge movies and people getting even, I'll watch any movie with Charles Bronson. It doesn't make a difference. He's got a gun, he's angry, I'm watching it. Good job with touching on all that. And probably a bad example for some kids, but hey, that's what life is. You live and you learn. Cedar Ridge, with your film, what were some of the aspects, maybe something you maybe pushed a little further in that film? Something that was a scene that you really wanted to maybe make a little stronger on the screen for people to see and squirm a little bit more for?
Well, I mean, for Cedar Ridge, we knew that our limitations, our budget, our time constraint, because we all came together, three of us that made this movie, and we're all lifelong horror fans. So we wanted, the characters, people care about them a little bit. We wanted people to not know what was going on and be scared, but we also wanted, the moments of violence. We wanted the elements that we'd seen in all the other horror movies, but we could only put so much in the mix. I'm a strong believer that we subconsciously or intentionally pull from everything we've seen, and fear is kind of created from that. We've got the primal fears everyone kind of understands, violence, threat of your life, but there's little fears like, in Hellraiser with the clacking teeth, people scared of things that might not.
Shadowbox, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Might not work for everyone else. So really in that film, we really had to try and focus on the characters because we felt like if no one cared about them anyway, then there was nothing else to drive the film forward because we couldn't execute 110% on everything we wanted as the violence of the death scenes and whatnot. And that's been a happy accident in some ways. I think that what we all kind of pushed for, and really the director Jeremy Berg really pushed for, was there's a scene in the film, and I won't spoil it, but wanted it to be one uncut shot. And it was very difficult to do with our crew and the environment without controls and whatnot. And it was just one thing that we stuck to. And we've heard that it's one of the more powerful scenes in the film and whatnot as far as when things do kind of go sideways. So we did fight for that a little bit.
Tara, with sibling rivalry, we got beef in your family? What's going on there?
I actually do really love my brother. I don't usually want to kill him. There are times every once in a while because we are siblings, so there are definitely times, but I do love him, but I actually had to hire someone because I offered him the role and he's like, you might get too realistic, so. But the sibling rivalry, I actually kind of came up with the idea when I was stuck in traffic. Yeah.
Stuck in traffic?
Yeah. We're stuck in traffic, and I'm just like, wait, I got an idea. What if I killed my brother, chopped him up into pieces, cooked him, and fed it to my mom? And my mom was like sliding out of the car, so.
Well, I guess I don't feel so bad when I'm in traffic and I want to kill a guy on the road. Because you just taught me on that one. I'm thinking about putting this guy on the road, flipping the car over, what would happen. You're thinking about killing your brother.
And eating him.
And being so gleeful about it.
Are you scared of me?
I don't know, the way he's staring right now, I'm scared of him. How are you guys, with the turnouts and some of the films, I'm sure you guys obviously went to the screenings of your films. Have you talked to any of the fans here at the festival? Maybe after the film, and got some reactions from some people?
We've got one screening. Our next screening's at 4 o'clock, so right after this, if anyone hasn't seen Cedar Ridge, come on over there.
Theater 5.
Theater 5. But it is always good to get the reactions, and I love being a part of some of these other films, being able to ask what was going on and how the film was made technically. But yeah, we get a lot of the best feedback for us, because I mentioned earlier how we couldn't achieve everything we wanted to in the film, and that always sits on your head the whole time you're out there showing the film to people. Is that people really appreciated some of the happy accents in the film, and one of those being that the fact that we didn't have a lot of gore or over-the-top violence in the film, it allowed some other elements of the story to kind of shine, or maybe it could have detracted from it. We've gotten those compliments a lot, and it's nice to hear, because we had to take it that direction, and I guess it turned out on some level.
I shouldn't just assume that everybody has seen the film, so why don't you talk about the film a little bit?
If I'm just,
I kind of blew past that,
Cedar Ridge is a film about a woman who's been adopted. She doesn't remember her past, and essentially she supposedly gets a house left to her, and she heads out to it. So, right off the bat, you've got that cabin in the woods kind of feel to it. They're going out there. But when she gets there, it kind of takes a turn. There's another character that has an involvement with her past involved. And we kind of try and study what happens when you black something out. When you have a traumatic past and you black it out, what happens when you start breaking through those walls? And what can happen on a psychological level. So most of our horror elements become psychological. We had one review that talked about how they still call this a horror movie, but there's no monster, there's not really a slasher, there's not a ghost necessarily. But it kind of happens in the head. And I hope that, I'm really curious if anybody sees it, and I'd love to hear about it, because that type of feedback is really important to know that it got through. That there isn't this one thread line, like what do you see when the screen shows things. Like at the end of The Shining kind of inspired a lot of it, when all of a sudden you visualize what's only been going on in Jack's head, the whole time, and you start seeing it, and the other characters start seeing it, and that kind of inspired a few moments in the film and whatnot.
What about the sounds? Let's give a bit of insight on that.
Well, it's been really cool. Just people coming up and saying, you know, that they like the movie. That's always a really rewarding experience. And one of our favorite things is when somebody, you know, rates us on IMDb or you know, sends us a little blurb on Facebook after they've seen it at a festival or whatever. And I don't know, people seem to like it. What do you think, Scott?
I like it when people say they can't shake it and they're still thinking about it a few days later. That's just the most awesome thing, because that's how I felt when I read the book, and that's what I wanted to capture. So I think that's like the greatest compliment, my favorite one.
Not many horror films truly affect you sometimes, especially as lifelong horror fans. Sometimes it's like we're hooping and hollering, we're having fun. The ones that make you think afterwards, I love a lot, and the ones that affect you. This movie, I mean, I watched it and it kind of penetrated me. I'm walking out, I had to, you know, shake it. It took me a while before I was even ready to think about seeing the next film, and that's when I knew. You know, there's moments when I'm like, I do not like what I'm having to sit through right here. This is painful, but only in the best of ways, because it got to me, and that rarely happens. That's a great suggestion for me.
Well, because yesterday we had these four kids. They couldn't have been older than 16, and they came up to us, and the girl said to me, she said, "Congratulations on scaring the shit out of me." That's what she said, and it was so cool that, you know, that it affected her in that way. So.
When I was 16, I did everything I could to try to go see a rated R movie. Those kids are lucky. I grew a beard just to get into some of these movies.
You needed to grow up in a small town. I always used to tell the story of like horror movies as a little kid. I always remember getting to watch, I think it was Friday the 13th, Part 8, and Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5. It was a double feature back when they did them. I was 10 years old, and I just got dropped off in front of the theater by my mom, and my best friend just walked in and watched the two movies back to back. Small towns, they didn't care. And I loved it. Got to see a lot of movies on the big screen that I never would have normally.
We had an independent video store. We all did. Some of course. There was one in my town, Palmer Video. I still remember the name of it. It had brown, the cassette, the VHS cover on the front, and then the brown plastic box behind it.
VHS player.
That's good to hear. I spent maybe 2 summers, literally, and I never rode my bike anywhere. I still don't. If I gotta walk with the movie, I may get in the car and drive over there, back to the theater. But I rode my bike every day of the summer to this video store and just rented every movie that I could rent. And the guy at the video store at first wasn't letting me rent the rated R movies, and I would go there, and you couldn't get on the internet, so I'd write down titles in a notebook that I wanted to rent when I was 18 years old, and I had like a whole notebook of them, and then finally the guy just started letting me rent every movie I wanted. I was there every day. I was like, get this kid out of the store, Today, with movies, generation's a little bit different. Kids got so much access to everything with the internet today.
I would love to hear.
Yeah, I'd like to hear
about that. Because I mean, in Fallon, there's a lot of talking about the VHS. You see it on the screen, and it brings a lot of us back to what it was like in video stores. I'm really curious as a horror fan, as a fan of Hitchcock and classic films. Like, what has it been like for you? Because I mean, I'm guessing that you grew up, these films were available streaming online, DVDs. I mean, just everything. What's your experience growing up with horror films and cinema in general?
Well, I do in fact own a VHS player. I also own a DVD player. But I've got a couple of Hitchcock films on DVD, and I can watch them on Netflix sometimes. A lot of them are on Netflix, so I have to go buy them on Amazon. But growing up, I didn't really grow up on this, and I'm still growing because I'm 15. A couple years ago, let's put it that way, I actually saw, first time I ever saw a Hitchcock film, I was like, I forget if I was 11 or 12. But it was Psycho, and it was the last half of Psycho. So it wasn't the last half. I need to go rent it on, because it wasn't the last half because it was on HBO. But
it's the original Psycho or Vince Vaughn Psycho? Original.
She's legit, man.
Some of the movies coming out, that hotel is actually here in Phoenix. It's the original hotel from the beginning. That was all filmed in downtown Phoenix.
I saw the second half.
So you got to go back and watch the first half. It's not a hotel anymore. I think it's an old age home. But it's if I'm not mistaken, everybody knows, right? Well,
It's the Westward Ho.
It's the Westward Ho now? Isn't it an old age home or not?
They do a whole bunch of things there.
We can open it up to some audience questions. You know, anybody has a question, definitely shout out to us.
He's going to get the mic right now, so.
I was going to grab the microphone.
Yeah.
It's coming up, it's August 30th and 31st, right?
That's correct.
In Columbus.
That's correct.
Yeah. I saw you guys have Nail Biter playing at your festival.
Actually played that last year, yeah.
Was I looking at last year's?
Yeah.
So I'm a little behind on the website. Hey, listen, I thought I'd get some good homework there. What do you guys, what do you guys got coming up this year?
We're actually in the selection process right now, so if there's any filmmakers out there, you're a given, but yeah, if there's anybody out there who has got a film in production or got a film done, send it our way. We'd love to see it.
I mean, have you been to the Phoenix Film Festival before? Is this
No, this is the first time.
First time?
First time.
You've been seeing a lot of movies, you like it?
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Make
Yeah.
sure you go home.
This is the festival that all other festivals should be modeled after.
That's a good line on there. Make sure we put that to do.
But ours is pretty awesome too, just saying. If you want to submit to Dark Carnival, it's www.darkcarnivalfilmfest.com.
Cool. Let's grab some questions from the audience. Anybody's number one that's here, have you seen any of the films? Yeah, that's it. Why'd you say it again with the mic very close? I can't hear you.
Well, I was wondering, actors in horror films, it's like kind of what I always seen in my experience to make. It was like the easiest way for an actor to get a role was in a horror film. Because they were the cheesiest ones to make, the silliest ones, and usually when you're saying about bad horror films, those are usually my favorites. And when you talk about Freddy Krueger, I'm like, yeah, that's great. But then you start talking about like some terrible ones, like Hannibal, I can't think of the name right now, but you guys know the ones where like the pus is so over grandiose of just
redneck zombies.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess to phrase the question would be, do you think that still affects film today? Do actors seem to get more work starting out in horror film genre?
They don't seem to want to stay in horror very long because they want to be taken seriously. And I think that hurts a lot of horror films because they don't get the best acting a lot of times. But I think horror films are actually one of the harder kinds of films to act in because you're asking actors a lot of times to be really physical and run around for a long time, hyperventilating, in a constant state of heightened emotion, crying. It's one of the hardest things an actor can do as a horror film, I think. And when I watch something like Scream and I see Neve Campbell running around, you know, she's a strong female character, but she's taxed the whole time. I have a lot of respect for that. So I would encourage more actors that are good to give horror a chance. Just don't pick any old horror script, but find a good one because it'll challenge you and you could bring out some of your best work in a horror film.
The nice thing about horror is that it's got an audience with a voracious appetite, and they're never satisfied, and there can never be enough content. So a lot of filmmakers, you know, when they start out, the first thing they do is a horror film because they know there's going to be an audience for it.
I actually have a follow-up to that, just in regards to, you talk about the appetite, and you talk about VHS, and now everything's iTunes and DVDs. Do you feel that because the appetite horror fans have, that now with everything online, that this has opened up a whole new world for horror? I mean, because it seems like on a smaller level, maybe I wouldn't say easier to make a profit, because it's not easy to make a profit as a filmmaker, but with all the new online ventures, it's easy to get that out there because there's such a rabid fan base for it.
You know, for going back to the last question and this one kind of mixed, I mean, horror, that's exactly what it is, and that's why so many people got their start in it, as well as directors and writers that then move on to do other genres. It's because genre pictures have that kind of pre-built audience. And I mean, to me, it was the opening up of international films, where when international films started becoming more commonplace, now that we can stream videos and whatnot, that kind of reinvigorated horror. The thing about actors in films, for me, in horror films, a lot of times they are cheesy. Horror films are just made to make that quick buck. A studio turns them, and you know, so actors can get in, they get their name out there, and they move on. But I think that's kind of a little bit of problem with cinema here in America, or filmmaking here in America on especially at the larger film level, is that horror movies aren't taken seriously, even a lot of times by the people that make them. They know we're serving up blood and guts. It's much like an action film. Let's serve up, flipping a car, blowing something up. We don't need to worry about the other items. And so, international films, a lot started coming from Japan and now Europe, and you start seeing them now and they're streaming and they're available. I think they're tending to reinvigorate the next generation of independent filmmakers that don't have to go in. I just need to chop off someone's head. I just need to have a monster jump out of a closet and it's done. Filmmakers that love to make movies have to get a good story and have to get good characters. And if you don't have actors that give 110%, everything you've done, all the work you've done is out the window. And so acting is very important. I mean, that was really important to us in State Origin. We got really lucky in a few areas to have some strong performances. And I mean, you said it perfectly, is that horror films tax so much, they ask so much of an actor. Because I mean, I learned on our set that stage acting and film acting is very different. You can't act. I love to hear what you say that, because I know you're an actress as well, but you have to live it to really bring the cameras right up in your face. You have to believe it. And I watched our lead actress, Trin Miller, who's amazing. When she goes through hard things on camera, even when unfortunately it's cut down to just a few seconds on film, it was hours of her taking herself there and suffering and crying. It took her almost a day and a half to get over one scene in our film. And it was because it was in her head. And so I have so much respect for actors, and I wish that I love the bad horror movies, Grizzly all day long. I love movies like that. They have their place, but at the same time, taking horror seriously is really important to me. And a lot of other countries are already doing it on a bigger stage, and so I was so happy to be here because every horror film I saw here was, taken seriously to a certain level, and I love that.
Well, I definitely agree with almost everything you said, but definitely when it comes to actresses and actors and horror films, because I've acted in several horror films. And it is more taxing because you have to scream, and especially if you're crying, it's one thing to just cry a little bit, but if you're bawling, and especially for a day or two, it's definitely hard. It's definitely hard, and I think that when it comes to horror being taken seriously, I really think it should be, because they're really good films. Most of them are really good.
I don't, and I disagree with the whole Academy Awards, all that stuff. There's no drama festival that people are interested in going to see around the country or around the world. There's no cult fan base of people wanting to go see On Golden Pond. Now, I'm not dissing On Golden Pond. It's a spectacular movie, but there's a major Evil Dead fan base, and these kids. And I'll put one guy out here right there, my friend Brandon, who's the other horror programmer for the Philly Film Festival over there.
Very smart man.
He has bought every version of Evil Dead, probably 5 different DVD versions of Evil Dead 2, of Army of Darkness, the Bruce Campbell edition, the one that comes out with a Necronomicon. He's bought the movie 20 times.
Anchor Bay should
I did the same with Sailor Moon.
Exactly. So, a lot of actors, a guy like Johnny Depp started out on Nightmare on Elm Street, or Jennifer Aniston, Leprechaun, or
Kevin Bacon, Friday the 13th.
Kevin Bacon, Friday the 13th, Courtney Cox and He-Man, Masters of the Universe.
Leonardo DiCaprio in the Critters movie.
Yeah, think about it. Plus Courtney Cox got pulled up by Bruce Springsteen, and I forgot what song that was.
Dance in the Dark.
Was it Born in the USA?
Dance in the Dark.
A lot of these guys that started out in this genre, and some of them did come back and do some stuff. I would say that Johnny Depp, even though he's moved on to bigger movies, he still does come back with his Sleepy Hollows. And Pirates of the Caribbean is kind of a kid's monster movie, but it's a monster movie. It's a genre that people love, that are die-hard fans of, and that are glued to, and to be fans of. And as we all get older, the people that are voting for these movies in the Academy Awards that do win, when they pass up a movie I thought the last Batman movie was phenomenal. I mean, it probably outgrossed almost every movie that won an award, pretty close to it. And it really just didn't get any kind of a nod, and it's a shame, but that will change because the people that are getting older that are watching the movies are our generation. And I think we're going to see a lot more in the way of horror and monsters. don't think that's getting lesser. I think it's getting bigger and bigger.
The question I have is kind of philosophical. Like, when we say horror, we talk about suspense. I always feel like suspense is innately involved in horror. So as directors, filmmakers in general, where do you find that line, and how do you try and kind of marry those things in your film?
I think that's a really interesting question, and I think that a lot of dramas and a lot of different things that are classified as dramas are really horror movies. Silence of the Lambs is a great example because I'm pretty sure that movie wasn't marketed as a horror movie. It's a thriller, but to me, that's straight up horror. That's terrifying, you know. And I think that happens a lot. People are Hollywood in particular is afraid of you know, calling serious movies horror movies due to a lot of the reasons that were mentioned earlier.
Well, everyone in the world, people have this conception that horror is just torture now, or slasher films, because Hollywood has reinforced that image for decades now. So I think it's up to all of us to keep challenging people's concept of what is a horror film, because we've mentioned some really good ones here. Hitchcock is known as, you know, the master of suspense, but those are horror films for the most part in my mind, and they're classy as hell. You've got to watch all of the Hitchcock films to learn some good lessons. And The Shining too, I mean, suspense is a huge part of it. You can have a scary thing in your movie like a clown or spiders, but it's just going to sit there until you build some suspense around it. So I think if you don't have both, you're not going to win.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Like, there's several horror films that, without the suspense there or without the horror element there, they just don't connect. But there are some exceptions that sometimes they don't marry exactly well, but there are definitely horror films out there that definitely need suspense element in there to be a good horror film.
Otherwise, it starts to feel cheap.
It does.
Otherwise, it's just shock value. And if you sit there and try really hard to shock an audience over and over again, they start to feel like a two-dime whore. You know?
Not even Lucas trying gravitating around. It didn't really shock me too much.
Primal fear.
Oh, sorry.
You say like primal fears are what, you know, a lot of them we just cheaply use. They're just like, people are scared of being cut or hurt or injured. You know, they're scared of, you know, the unknown because of they're going to get cut, hurt, or injured. It's an animal instinct. It's so natural in us. And you can play upon that, but you can always take it to the next level and play on what creates fear beyond that. You know, like I was kind of mentioned earlier, a suspense is, you know, can be created both ways, but if you care about the characters, which a lot of people don't seem to care about, it's just like, where's the next werewolf going to come out and tear this guy apart? That's what I'm waiting to see for. I loved Jason Voorhees as a Friday the 13th fan growing up, and I wanted him to come out and kill more people. I didn't care about the characters, he was just a badass. And there's a place for that, but it never elevated those movies beyond that for me.
It's like food, you know. I like Jason movies, I do, but they're like popcorn. You know, they're a burger. And then you've got your classy, expensive meals like The Shining.
Well, and there's movies like The Descent. I personally didn't think the monsters were scary in that movie. I thought watching those people climb down those ropes.
Ditto.
That whole movie, I was like getting heartburn. I was getting agita watching it because they're like climbing and you're waiting for them to fall. You're waiting for this to happen and that to happen. I thought that was more suspenseful actually than the monsters themselves coming out.
That movie was an assault on phobias.
Yes.
Claustrophobia especially.
What I actually find the scariest is not seeing, you know, a million people get slaughtered and blood and guts popping up. What I find the most scary thing in horror films is when you just see enough that you know what's going on, but sometimes your imagination can go more than what you can show on camera, like with Hitchcock or with Jaws. So that's what I find.
Yeah, Jaws, perfect example.
Oh, yeah.
I was afraid of the toilet because of Jaws. I wouldn't go in the pool. I mean, that movie I think is the scariest movie ever made. At any age you watch that movie.
I mean, I love that movie, and if it would have been made today, with the CGI that's available, you would have seen the shark tearing people apart, you would have seen everything. But I mean, why do people read books for thousands of years? Why do people tell stories? Because there's no CGI, there's no practical effects, which I love practical effects in horror. that is better than the imagination, than what's left off the camera, than what's hinted at. That monster is the worst. I love H.P. Lovecraft, and often his great, prose is just broken down to like an unnameable, unmentionable thing. And my mind always wondered what could that be, and created, demons and creatures more horrible than anything I've ever seen on screen. And I mean, like Alien was mentioned earlier. I mean, that's a big movie that informs how all of my small budget genre pictures would be moving forward, because we can't have CGI or big monsters, and I wouldn't want it, because they couldn't do it either. And so they kept the creature in the dark. They talked about the creature, and you built your own fear of what it's going to be like until you get a little bite at the end to just, seal it. So I definitely agree.
To me, one of the scariest parts of Jaws is when they're all in the bottom of the ship, and the guy is talking about the USS Indianapolis and how, that is one of the most amazing monologues ever written, and I just about peed my pants the first time I saw that. I don't know, it was just amazing to me.
Here's the drinking with bow-legged women. You got another question out there?
Yes, I do. You guys are phenomenal in your thought process, and I appreciate that. However, I'm probably one of those weird people that I don't want to see a scary movie that I'm going to have nightmares on, because I do. But when it comes to Hitchcock or Tarantino, and let me tell you, I think they're pretty playing with your head psychologically, and I consider that a scary movie. However, it makes me think while I'm watching the movie. And my person, that's how I am, and my granddaughter can agree, I'm the person who's sitting there watching it, and then I will make a noise, even when I think it's going to happen. I mean, like the car goes, there's a car that whizzes by, where the music kind of gets you going, and you go, and here I'm the idiot in the back, making the noise, and about 20 people around me are like, stop it. And I'm horrible. What about what you would call the cheesy monster movies of the 30s? Lon Chaney, some of those guys.
All cheesy.
Yeah, I wouldn't know if I call those cheesy. They were scary.
They did look scary. And at that time, it was what I would call the era, that age. Now, when the young kids watch it, they're like, yeah, right. Here he comes up the hill, and nobody cares.
Well, when it comes to Hitchcock, everything you mentioned about Hitchcock is actually one of the reasons I love him. He's my favorite director. I think he's just amazing. I love the fact that I actually watched a Hitchcock film last night on Netflix. It was Lady Vanishes. Awesome film, by the way. But it's actually one of the main reasons I like Hitchcock, because you have to think. I like that kind of horror. It's one of my favorite kinds.
I spent my whole childhood, my mother, who was showing me, Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 7 years old or whatnot, she hated classic films. She didn't like her childhood growing up, and it reminded her of the age. It was always cheesy and ridiculous, and the effects weren't up to par, which now I watch the movies from the 80s, and their effects aren't necessarily up to par or whatnot. And I didn't discover it for years. I was just like, it's silly, it's goofy, you can't take it seriously. And that's the whole thing. It's the opposite effect of the movie that has just crazy effects or the cars blowing up. Those kind of films are the opposite of that. You take that out, and what they had to work with was your imagination. What they had to work with was making you think. And so it's like I find even obviously with younger viewers that have been raised in a world of CGI and big explosions and a lot of information coming in, sometimes it's actually a relief to go back and see something that's pure, that's storytelling, that's creative. I mean, it's amazing. Those films were, when I first discovered them, such a late bloomer to it. They were so creative, and even going back to like The Wolfman, Lon Chaney, it's like it's of the era. Like when he walks up and he's sitting there, telling the woman how he saw her through his telescope. All I can think is this is insanely ridiculous. This is the way he's treating her as a woman. All these period things they do detract, but you kind of let that wash away. You look at the bigger picture. There's a story of pain and sorrow that is been emulated for years and thousands of movies. So there's a little bit of something good in every great film. I would say good is good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I agree with the fact that a lot of people want to see the explosions and all that kind of stuff, but to me, I'd rather see something like Art Stick and Old Lace. That was just hilarious. It was more of a dark comedy, but it was still horror. but it was hilarious. Like, I want to own that film. I so want to own that film. It was awesome.
It's out there, Mom. Get it for it.
I know it's like out on Amazon or something.
The thing that's like the classic horror films is that part of the mystery of those films was at the time, you know, like with the effects, people didn't know how these things were done. You know, it was all very mysterious. That was part of the mystery. It was all really mysterious. There wasn't a lot of you know, literature, or there was no DVD with behind the scenes. You know, you couldn't see how things were done. So, you know, people didn't know about stop motion or matte paintings or any of that kind of stuff. And, you know, now everyone assumes that everything is CGI. And everybody assumes that they know how everything is done. And so
They left the element of how did they do that.
right, we've lost the element of how did they do that, you know. And that was one of my favorite things about the classic horror films, you know. Is that, you know, when I was a kid, again, I'm old, when I was a kid and I saw those, you know, I still had that wonder, you know, about how these things were done. And I think it's a shame that, you know, some of that's kind of lost now.
That American Werewolf in London transformation.
Yeah, that is so awesome.
And it doesn't always have to be the scariest or bloodiest or goriest thing, because whether you're talking about Michael Myers popping out of the shadows and just not saying anything, just looking, or
The scariest thing
the
is
creature
ever.
from the Black Lagoon underwater and just coming up like this, and he just expressionless. Both of those were just as scary to me, and it wasn't a guy getting his head blown up. It was just the way that was shot, you know, and the suspensefulness that brought that feel.
The great thing about the creature is that would be a challenge to shoot today. You know,
They're trying.
it would be a challenge to have a guy in a suit swimming underwater and not drowning. That would be a hard thing to do even today. You know, and it would probably be CGI.
Well, they had 2 guys back then.
Yeah, 2 guys.
Yeah, a swimmer and then a guy that actually just
And the actor, yeah.
I was going to also add that I think kids today, I worry about them because they don't watch those movies. And I don't think they're cheesy, but there's a historical perspective that instantly makes most horror films more fascinating. Like the 50s atomic horror, our fear of communism and things. And people are now talking about, why are zombie movies such a big deal right now? I think in 5 or 10 years, we're going to have some interesting theories as to why we're so obsessed with zombies. In fact, some people already have some that I think might have some validity. So horror films are very tied to our culture and our society at the time. And looking back at it through the lens of history can be so revealing and make the films even more interesting. Like The Incredible Shrinking Man. Who doesn't think that that's...
Horror films.
That's all about not being able to get it up.
Yeah. Horror films reflect, you know, in general, they reflect people's fear of the dead. You know, in the 50s it was radiation. It was you know, atomic warfare, and you know, in the 70s it was pollution. You know, so every era has got its own thing, and you can kind of see what people were afraid of by looking at the horror films from a certain era.
Certainly romantic about those movies too. If you look at Dracula with Bela Lugosi, and you look at Mad Love, and you look at movies like that that kind of speak to that side of things, and it reminds me of Ed Wood, the film Ed Wood, when Bela Lugosi says that women like the classic movie monsters, and I think that's kind of true. So.
Okay, I think we're going to do one last question, and then we'll do a wrap up with you guys. So.
Hi, this question is more for the young women on the dais. My grandmother, family rumor has it, my grandmother was a ghost writer associated with Hitchcock. And so I was wondering, I just read an article that said that when men dream, they largely dream about sex, and when women dream, they largely have nightmares. So it seems a perfect fit for women, and I was wondering if it was difficult for you guys to break into the business of creating these movies.
Well, when it comes to having nightmares and everything, I actually tend to not have nightmares. I usually have dreams about like cute Asian guys. So,
TMI.
But
Totally lost her train of thought here.
Cute Asian guys.
yeah.
You're not the only one.
But when it comes to like breaking into the horror business and everything, it's actually there's only 2% of directors are female, and even less are in horror. And like I said earlier, the reason I kind of got into the whole I can make a horror film thing was because I was on a set of Few Brains More, and I saw a woman directing a horror film. And on the set, I was poisoning people with snow cones. That was my role. But yeah, it's pretty much how I got into horror films. And when it comes to like Hitchcock and everything, I love Hitchcock. I just think he's amazing. Like one of my favorite Hitchcock films is To Catch a Thief, Down on Murders, and Really Close Second. So.
I think horror is kind of a boys' club. It is. But on the other hand, it kind of makes you stand out a little more when you are a female working in this genre. On top of that, the reason I love horror is because it deals with issues that other genres are totally afraid of touching. And I think that that's very important for us as a society to face those things and to talk about our fears. Because if we don't talk about it, how are we going to get over it? How are we going to make the world better? And I think that movies are a part of that. I really do. So definitely.
I think horror fans sleep better at night.
Yeah, probably.
So, what do you guys got coming up after this year? I got to say to you, on the feature films, every movie that he picks out gets picked up. So, you got some good luck on your side there.
That's a verbal contract, by the way.
That's a verbal contract. He's the last 5 years of films that Brandon's picked out, I think I would say 95% of them have all been picked up by his studio. And it's awesome because we end up seeing, I got a Netflix suggestion, I'll be like, oh yeah, we saw it 3 years ago at the Phoenix Film Festival, horror sci-fi. So, what do you got coming up? I mean, any plans for any other festivals? Any other movies you're working on?
Well, we're about halfway through our festival run with Found right now. We're planning on continuing through October and November. And so we're really excited about that. And then I'm planning on DPing a short film and directing a music video in the next year. So.
Oh, that's a lot of fun.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Dealing with band members is the worst thing in the world.
By the way,
It'll be an interesting experience.
as you guys all go down and give your comments, if you could let us know if we got any remaining screening times.
I think the only remaining screening is your film, right?
So everyone's going, so I expect to sell.
It's at 4
No
o'clock.
excuse, you have to go to Cedar Ridge.
Tara, what about you?
Well, I've just finished, actually it was on February 3rd and wrapped it. My operator, I like to call it a little thriller with a lot of soul. But we just started submitting out to festivals, and it's actually been to a festival so far. I've actually been to 2 festivals, and it's won, 3 awards? Yeah, 3 awards. And with Sibling Rivalry, it's definitely got some more festivals it can go to. It's been 25 so far, won several awards. But I definitely have some more screenplays that I'm still working on, feature film horror, so.
Yeah, we're gonna pull together a feature. That's 5 shorts now. It's time.
Yeah, I've got a feature that I'm still trying to write, make sure I get the lyrics, not the lyrics, the lines 100% right.
And how can people, before we continue to move on, how can people keep a track of what you guys coming out? Do you have a website, or just Facebook, or?
As far as Found's concerned, you can keep track of the movie at foundmovie.net, and we also have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/foundmovie. As far as me right now, all I have is my Facebook page and my email address, but working on a website, so we'll see how that goes.
Cool.
All of my films have a Facebook, so I also have cards I can give out. And I actually got a production website where you can see upcoming festivals and everything for all my films. It's Front Porch Film, singular. It's frontporchfilm.com, and I post everything, like where festivals, where it's going to festivals, won any awards, that kind of stuff.
Right now, the October People, which is the group that puts Cedar Ridge together. We've got a couple scripts, kind of depending on what happens with our festival run. Cedar Ridge is in the middle of the festival run right now. Currently, we have Fright Night Fear Fest that we're going to be at, and Stiff in Seattle, our home area. Hopefully next, we're either going to be going down the horror romantic comedy avenue, or we're going to be making our first true genre picture with a monster flick. So that's what we've all been dreaming to do for a long time, so that's what we're working on right now. The OctoberPeople.net is our main website. We've actually, a couple of us have different shorts that we've done. You can see like trailers for those on there. And we're on Facebook, and that's kind of where we update everything that happens with Cedar Ridge, where it's going, and of course we're looking for that distribution and kind of to see what's next. So hopefully we'll be doing a genre picture with the same kind of care and character-driven focus that we tried to run with Cedar Ridge. So. And Cedar Ridge is at 4 o'clock, right down there. So
4 o'clock, Theater 5. So, David, you want to add anything about your festival coming up? The website?
Yeah, the festival is, again, it's August 30th through the 31st, and it's in Columbus, Indiana, www.darkcarnivalfilmfest.com. And in addition to that, I'm working on a short film, but that's the short that Leya was talking about, that we'll be shooting fairly soon. And so Leya is working on that, Scott's working on it. Shane Beasley, who's out in the audience, he's going to be the lead. So we're pretty excited about that.
Scott, you want to add anything else that wasn't covered before I got to you?
Well, Leya and I are both involved in 2 feature projects that we're trying to plan out. An anthology horror film from the author of Found, and a primal revenge piece.
I love revenge movies.
Very primal.
Cool. Well, I want to thank everybody for staying, and you know, get involved here. Don't forget to definitely keep a track of some of these movies online. That way, when they do come out on DVD and you go buy them, and then you tell your friends to come over and have some pizza and watch the movie, you remember that you got to hear some insight on these movies ahead of time. And don't forget, it's 4 o'clock, right? It's Theater 5.
4 o'clock.
Cedar Ridge.
Thanks for supporting independent horror, by the way.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Really appreciate it a lot.
Awesome.
All right, guys, thank you very much. I just want to ask you, I mean, what got you first into horror? And I want to talk to everybody as well. What are some of the films that got you into horror to even get involved in this genre here?
Making horror, I was actually on a different film set. I was like 9 or so, I might have been 10. But it was a horror film set, and it was called A Few Brains More, and there was actually a woman directing it. And I was just like so impressed, and like, you know, there's a woman directing that, and it just made me think, yeah, I can do that too. Not to mention it was also a horror film, so I'm like, yeah, I can also do that. So, but getting into horror, just the genre itself, I love Hitchcock films. I'm a humongous Hitchcock fan. So.
Cool. What about you, Dan? What got you into the horror film love here?
Well, actually, I went to IU, and when I first went to IU, I hadn't really seen a lot of horror movies. I didn't really know what I was missing, and I got involved with a film festival there, actually Dark Carnival, the one that Dave is the festival director for.
All right. So I want to get started first. Just a pretty impressive introduction to Tara here. One of her short, Sibling Rivalry, was part of the horror shorts, and was one of the official selections for the festival. She was 12 years old when she made that short, and you know, I was pretty blown away seeing not only the age of when you did that and the quality of it as well, because I mean it was done really well, but also that you're a girl and you're into horror at such a young age. You know, when I was growing up, horror movies was kind of like a boys' club thing. You know, all the guys got together, we watched The Evil Dead, The Reanimator, I mean, you know, Creep Show. This was our Friday nights, and every girl was watching, you know, 16 Candles, or you know, some kind of John Hughes movie that kind of was a little not interested in at that young age.
I interned with them, and I learned all about independent horror that way, and then sort of, you know, worked my way into the great classics. And And seeing American Psycho and Pet Sematary and finding out they were directed by women was really inspirational. So.
Have you seen the American Psycho parody that just came out online with Huey Lewis?
I haven't seen it yet.
You guys haven't seen it? You guys need to see it right away. Funny or Die just did a parody of American Psycho where Huey Lewis is talking about American Psycho and he's doing the whole, walking backwards thing. And it's Weird Al sitting in the chair. And, and he's got the newspaper everywhere and he ends up bashing Weird Al's brains in. And he's talking about the whole history of American Psycho. It's pretty awesome. And how about you? What was one of the earlier movies that you saw that gave you? I mean, anybody that sees a horror movie that gets into horror, there's always one movie that kind of put them in that place.
Yeah, it's hard to say there's one movie. Like, I love so many.
And I wrote, directed, and starred in something Revelry. Before I say anything else, I just wanted to thank the Phoenix Film Festival for having me here, and it's really such an honor to be here. Thank you very much. But yeah, I've written and directed 5 short films so far. I'm only 14 years old, and I made my main sibling actually 2 years ago. So.
My name is Matt Medisch. I am a producer and co-writer on Cedar Ridge. And I also want to thank the festival for having us here. We're very proud to have been alongside of some fantastic films. And I'm also a lifelong horror fan. So excited to talk about it.
My name is David Pruitt, and I am the festival director for the Dark Carnival International Film Festival. And this is my first time at the Phoenix Film Fest, but it is pretty awesome. Very excited to be here.
I'm Scott Schirmer. I directed, found, worked on it with Leya down there. We're not sitting together, but I'm with you in heart.
Seeing some good movies.
Yeah!
Phoenix Film Festival is growing and growing every year. And the International Horror Sci-Fi Festival, which is part of the festival, also is getting a little bit bigger and bigger. And selections are getting bigger. Quality's getting even better. It's good to see it. I want to thank everybody for coming out and make sure the festival's still another couple days. So keep telling your friends about some of these movies and stuff and come on down. I'm going to have all our guests here introduce themselves and talk a little bit about why they're here today, and want to get this discussion started here for what's so scary with horror movies. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you first here.
Hi, my name is Leya Taylor, and I co-produced and was the director of photography for a horror feature called Found that played here this weekend. So thanks